Okay, all right, you are good to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. Today's Ignite session is going to be on making and receiving offers, and your instructor is going to be Obleton. He has a lot of experience in the business and definitely knows a lot about making and receiving offers, especially receiving, as he's been doing a lot of work in listings right now. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat as he's moving along. I will keep an eye on that. But Art, you are ready to get going. Lonnie says, yay, Art, good morning.
Thanks. Good morning, Marty. Good morning, everybody. So first wants to thank the leadership team for the opportunity to teach this course, and hopefully I can bring some insight to you guys and bring value. So goal of our time together today is to learn how to present offers when you represent a buyer and respond to an offer when you represent a seller. So I want to first start with my story about how I became a realtor, a little bit about me. I was a substitute teacher for a while. I have a degree in business from Kent State University. I was a substitute teacher for a while. The business and degree thing wasn't working out for me. So it was really one of a spiritual journey, just a lot of reading the Bible and praying and just finding myself. And so came upon the idea of having my own business. I was actually reading the Bible, and I had a prompting to say, they said, work for me, I pay well. Then went back to reading, and a prompting came, hire yourself. And so sometime later, I was in a devotion time and had the idea and came to call a division of real estate again to find out what it takes to get my real estate license. I was a realtor before. From 05 to 06, I only did 2 transactions the whole year. I was younger, didn't want to work much, but that's how I was. I had to grow up and mature. And so got the real estate license, took the test again, got the real estate license, and started doing transactions. My broker sent me leads. I did transactions. I only wanted to initially do transactions for family and friends, a few transactions a year. And I started doing the transactions. I kept doing them. I realized this was income, and I loved it, and I just put a lot of emphasis in it, and really started working the business, growing the business. And so that's what I did. Last year I did 41 transactions, looking to do more this year. So from just wanting to do a few to doing more than what I ever expected. So I wanted just some things about me. That's my story. As you probably know, I'm on the ALC for this year and looking to grow and help other people grow their business too. So making offers, I want to start with the next slide here, Carrie, about setting expectations during the buyer's consultation. So in a market like this, it's important for us to set our expectations, set the buyer's expectations. You want to do that during the consultation up front. A lot of times you have to slow down the speed up, okay? You don't want to rush through the process or run out and just start showing houses or get a buyer and, oh, they're pre-approved, send me your pre-approval letter and we're running out showing houses. You want to slow down, meet with the buyer, maybe over coffee, Panera somewhere, drink tea or whatever it is, and begin to give a presentation, your buyer's presentation. That's going to set the buyer's expectations. You're going to tell them about the pace of the market. You're going to tell them about the multiple offer situations, that it's a fast-moving market. You want to tell them about the inventory, how inventory is low, and how there's so few homes for sale and so many buyers getting pre-approved because the interest rates are so low. It's good to present them with charts and graphs, and we have that in our market center, the language of real estate. We have that information. You can present that to them and just begin to educate them. A lot of times people begin to understand and they'll receive the information more once you show it to them opposed to just tell them. So if you're showing them in the charts, in the graphs, and the information that you have presented to them, then they can begin to see it and they can process it. It's not hard to convince a buyer that, that it is a fast market now. They're seeing it on the news. They're hearing their family and friends talk about it. They're seeing homes go above list price. They'll see a home on Zillow or Realtor, and one day, a day or two later, it's under contract. So the media is helping us as buyers agents in terms of making offers. The media is helping us. Their family and friends, they know the pace of the market to an extent. But when you meet with them, you can begin to share with them the actual information as to how fast the market is moving as a real estate professional. So you want to explain the multiple offers and the different types of offers you can make. Different types of offers you can make and how to structure your offer, how to structure the transaction to make their offer more favorable, and we will get into that more later too. Before you make an offer, you do want to ask that buyer, and how comfortable are you with offering a certain amount? Of course, you run the comps. Comps are good to an extent because the comps they're based on the last 6 months, and we know prices are higher now than what they were 6 months ago. So comps are something you can gauge, but you definitely tell your buyer that, hey, the prices are higher than these comps at this point. If you're going to get the house and it's priced accordingly, you're going to have to go higher than the comps. And as we know, like one agent said in our office, the list price is really the starting price. And so you have to be willing to be in a bidding war. They have to be willing to be in a bidding war, almost like an auction, like the list price and starting price, like an auction. So you want to confirm the amount that the buyer is comfortable paying. You can also follow with the loan officer. How high, I mean, it depends on what the buyer wants to offer and how high they're willing to go. How high can this borrower go in making an offer for a particular house? Also, you want to follow with closing costs. Does the buyer need closing costs? Now, in a market like this, hopefully they don't need closing costs, and you want to ask the borrower, structure the transaction, let them know. You can ask for closing costs, but it makes your offer less attractive. Same thing with contingencies also. We'll get into that. So you'll make the strongest offer initially, and a lot of times I'll encourage my buyer to per se throw their best points first, because a seller can accept an offer at any time. They don't have to wait. They can say highest and best, do Monday at 5 p.m., but they can accept the offer Sunday night if the offer is attractive enough. So you want to follow up with it, find what the buyer think is they're comfortable paying for the property, for that particular property. Find out from the loan officer, do they really need help with closing costs? Can they pay their own closing costs? And buyers can tell you they can, but they may be able to tell you they can, but the loan officer a lot of times will know more in terms of what all the fees and the costs will be in terms of cash to close that the buyer will need. Sometimes buyers think they have it, but it actually turns out that they need more. So before you make the offer, one thing that I do is I will actually, at the showing, I will call the listing agent with the buyer in the house. Now, granted, you and your buyers in the house. No other buyers can hear no other clients can hear the conversation, or any other agents or their clients. So I'll call the listing agent, and I'll literally have the listing agent on speakerphone. Now, what this does is, now I'll tell the listing agent that, I have you on speaker with my buyer. Hopefully you doesn't mind. I always let them know first, and usually they say that's fine. Now, what they'll do is, what that does, it helps me build rapport with the listing agent, and it also shows transparency with my buyer. So it shows the transparency because a lot of times as realtors, the public don't see us, they don't see us as trustworthy people a lot of times. And we have to, I do things to build rapport and build confidence and trust of my client, and so they can believe in me. And so if I have them on a speaker, like I said, I'll let the listing agent know we're speaking, and then I'll ask certain questions. What is the traffic like? And usually I have a lot of showings. Do you have any offers? And they'll tell me, and the buyer's hearing this. No, we don't have any offers, or because it's the first day and we're one of the first buyers, we're the first clients to see the house. No, they don't have any offers, or we have offers. And I'll push them a little bit, and I'll ask, well, how many offers do you have? Sometimes they'll tell me, sometimes they won't. If they're not at liberty to tell, they'll say, I'm not at liberty of my seller to tell how many offers I have. So, but at least the buyer is hearing the conversation. They're understanding the pace of the market more. It's not me just telling them, oh, they have 5 offers, and the buyer is doubting, because keep in mind, every buyer has that family member, that uncle, that aunt, that friend that's saying, don't trust the realtor. The realtor's just telling you that. He's telling you have 3 offers, they probably don't have any, or I wouldn't pay that for this house. Why would you bid over list price? That doesn't make sense. So you have the buyer who has the mother or the father or the uncle. Oh, when I bought my house, I didn't pay that. I didn't pay that price. Well, they bought their house 10 years ago. So the market was different then. So all the buyer's consultation begins to help you and prepare and really help the buyer to be able to speak to their relatives more intelligently about the market and what's going on and what you're explaining. Because you're not just talking to the buyer themselves, you also have to build enough knowledge, give your client enough knowledge to be able to defend their choice and their decision making against that person that they trust so much, and they'll do whatever that person tells them to do that's so close to them. So like I said, I'll call the listing agent, I'll build a rapport. I had a loan officer partner say, in winning multiple offers, send a Bitmoji of yourself and make them laugh, make the listing agent laugh. You want to build a rapport, you want to charm them to some extent, and you don't want to just send the offer over. You don't want to just send an offer over. You want to tell them that you plan to send an offer. If you don't send the offer, if the buyer decides not to send an offer, call them back or send them a text. Let them know they're not making an offer. But you want to at least build a rapport and tell them about yourself. Tell them you can tell them about your client and what type of borrower they are, FHA, conventional, VA, or cash. You can tell them some things of that nature. When you do talk to the listing agent, you do want to find out what are the terms the seller is looking for. Is it only price? Is it the closing date? What title company are they looking for? Or do they want to do a transaction with? So you want to structure your offer that as favorable as possible for the seller here. We can head to the next slide here.
I think that is really good information, Art. I think it's important that even if your buyers don't decide to put an offer in, you still communicate well with the listing agent and build rapport with them, because later down the line, you might have another offer on a different house with different clients with that listing agent, and they might remember you and say, I remember he didn't even put an offer, but working with him was so professional, very smooth, and looks good.
Right, and in this market, like in a market that we have here, you want to, like I say, build a rapport. You want to have a track record of you having transactions that close and work with clients that actually close on the transaction. So a lot of agents didn't think about it, but 4 or 5, 6 years ago, when they were having transactions that were falling apart and not closing and financing not working out, and some agents trying to be a tough guy with tough negotiating and just being difficult. See, in a market like that, that's coming back to hunt them, because now you really do need your buyers offer accepted. So if you came across as someone as being very difficult to work, if that agent came across as someone being difficult to work with, or being just fighting over every little transaction, trying to win every battle and possibly lose the war, then those situations like that, agents remember that, and they have the right to tell their seller that this realtor is difficult to work with, or this realtor had transactions that didn't close, with their buyers. So the rapport and the reputation you build over the last few years is helpful or harmful in a market like this. So let's head to our.
You've got one question
Yeah.
before we move on. It's from Bonnie, and she says, "What do you tell buyers that are stuck on Zillow's estimates to determine their bidding price?"
Right, Zillow, one thing you can do is you want to show them the comparable sales, okay? And what you can do on the MLS, there's information where you show the sale and the percentage of the list price that it's sold for. So like when I'll meet with buyers and I'll tell them, or with sellers, you say, these homes, especially with buyers, you tell them the homes, they're listed for this price. They're going into contract within 5 days. And all these houses, and you can show it on the comps when you pull them, all the houses are going higher than list price. So Zillow is not actually going, their data is not totally accurate in terms of getting the most accurate and the most current comps for the house in the area. So Zillow they have a algorithm that's not as accurate as us actually pulling comps in the house next door or the house across the street. And you can narrow that search down too, based on the style of the home, actually the better number of bedrooms. You can narrow the search down to close to 1 mile, a 1 mile radius for a suburb, to narrow it to a 1/4 mile to a 1/2 mile, and the smaller radius, the more likely to be accurate is the comps. So hopefully that helps there too.
All right, I will go ahead.
Okay, so letter, one thing we can do, we talked about the buyer writing a letter. Okay, and this has been controversial for a while, but this is something you can do. So the buyer can write the letter, or you can compose the letter. Now, we're only presenting the letter as a buyer's agent. In our brokerage, we're not presenting the letter if we're the seller's agent, because the buyer, if the letter plays a factor, it's going to have an impact on the seller if it's going to be an issue. So when we're representing the seller, we don't present letters. Our brokers share that with us. We don't present letters, but if we're representing the buyer, we can present letters and photos and things of that nature and so forth. Okay, so a letter, and once again, you really want to emphasize the type of loan, that they'll or talk about the house a lot and how they would enjoy the house and like the house, and how the house will fit their needs. Okay, so only presenting letters when we're representing the buyer itself. Let's see here. Highest and best offers, deadlines, like when we present offers. I think I share that with you. Those deadlines really don't matter. If your buyer, if the deadline is Monday at 5 o'clock, but your buyer wants to write an offer Sunday afternoon, be sure to write that offer as soon as possible, because if your offer is strong enough, that seller can accept your offer immediately. They do not have to wait till Monday at 5 p.m. And even if your offer, if your buyer says, I want to write an offer and it's Monday at 5 p.m., get on the phone, call that listing agent and tell them we plan to submit an offer. Sometimes they'll allow you to do a verbal or certain terms of the offer, tell them the terms, and you can tell them, hey, we plan to make this offer. It'll be a little later, it'll be after 5 o'clock, but it's a strong offer, it'll be coming across. There have been situations where it was a multiple offer situation and we were past the deadline. One example for sure, I remember. We were past the deadline and I called the agent, got her on the phone, and one thing I do, which is I read this on Riz Media Magazine, that they sent out in our emails, which is, when you're calling, I do it when I call listing agents, I do it when I'm for prospecting, lead generating, which is when you call, no one answers. I do not leave a message, I hang up. And I call right back. If I call right back, it shows a sense of urgency, and many times they'll pick up. Okay, they pick up. You got them on the phone. I have the listing agent on the phone. I'm telling them about the offer. or I have that lead on that prospect on the phone, and there have been transactions I've closed because I made that second call opposed to just leaving a voicemail or sending a text. I made that second call, got the person on the phone, talked to the agent, tell them about the offer, or talk to that client and create the urgency and got out and write the offer to get the transaction going. So you want to, that's one thing. And then if they don't pick up the second time, I'll send a text, because people are more likely to respond to a text than they are a voicemail. Some people, it takes a while for them to respond to their voicemail. So deadlines don't matter. Submit the highest and best offer as soon as possible. Make sure the purchase agreement, this is simple. It sounds very simple, but you want to make sure all documents, all lines, all the purchase agreement and all of the documents are completely filled out, like the agency disclosure. Definitely send over the pre-approval letter. You'll be surprised the offers I received as a listing agent, and the pre-approval letter doesn't come over with the offer. So I have to come up to the listing agent, the buyer's agent, and say, send over the pre-approval letter. Make sure the pre-approval letter is updated. Make sure the buyer can be pre-approved for $250. Make sure that letter says at least $250. And one thing I've done in the past is if the buyer is pre-approved for $270,000, but they want to make an offer for $270 in a normal market, I asked the loan officer to readjust the pre-approval letter to $250. In a market like this, you probably want to show the higher amount to show that they're that much stronger of a borrower, and because there are multiple offers and there are a lot of offers coming in. So you want to show that, hey, they're well able to pay the amount of money, especially with there multiple offers. So you want to make sure everything's filled out. It makes it easier for the listing agent, that all spaces are filled out, all documents are completely filled out. You don't want to come across as honestly a lazy buyer's agent. Just go online, go to visit the county auditor site, find the seller's name if it's not on the MLS, and put it in the agency disclosure. Fill out as much as you can, make it simple, make it easy for the listing agent. I had listing agents that tell me, hey, I like how you fill out write up an offer. It's simple, it's easy, everything's right there. Submit all documents. I had a listing once where the agent submitted the proof of funds to a certain amount, and then the seller accepted another offer. I asked for highest and best. He submitted proof of funds for a certain amount, and the proof of funds were not enough for the offer that he submitted. So the seller accepted another offer, and the buyer's agent was upset, and there was no need to be upset. The proof of funds were not enough. So you just want to continue to show the competence of when you're submitting your offer. And once again, that goes to build rapport and having a relationship, good relationship. There are times, and I had a situation like this where my buyer, I can remember 4 transactions where I did not have the highest offer, and I was told we did not have the highest offer. My buyer did not have the highest offer. The listing agent said he talked to his seller. He said he worked with me. We worked well together. We had a smooth transaction, and he encouraged the seller to accept my offer, and they were willing to accept our offer. And so once again, the reputation, the rapport. You don't want to come across as someone that's always trying to beat somebody out of something or some type of game or tactic. That I come across as being straightforward. This is the offer. This is how we present our offer. If you call me, I'm going to get back to you. I'm available. If I don't pick up the phone, I'll respond via text, let you know that I'll call you back later, and just be someone that's easy to work with. You want to be someone that's easy to work with, easy to get along. I'm not saying you're going to be a pushover for your client. Yes, you're going to represent your client, but not to be overly difficult just to be difficult, because you know what? That comes back to bite you. There are some agents, they were listing houses at one price point, at one point, and they grew their business. They're at a higher price point, and you're going to grow your business. And so you grow your business, and now you're at a higher price point, and you're trying to break into a new market. But so that's why your rapport at a lower price point, or when you first start a business, is going to be very, very important. We can head to the next slide here.
And just a reminder, if anyone has any questions for Art, feel free to just throw them in the chat or unmute. Happy to get to those.
Great. So let's see, general home inspections. There's some strategies you can use and make an offer. I've done, the quicker you can get the inspections done, the better. You know, I used to do it in a normal market, 7 days for the general home inspection, radon, pest inspection, and then 10 days for any other inspections. And you know, these inspections are due from when the contract is executed. So it's not as if you have 7 days, or say we have here 5 days, 5 days for the general home inspection, and then after the general home inspection, the inspector recommends the structural engineer, then you have another, say, 8 days. No, it's 5 days or 8 days from when the contract is signed, executed. Okay, so that's something you can do. Have inspections. The buyers have the right to have inspection. I tell them the rights. They have the right. I tell them there are different ways you can ask for inspections and write your offer. You can ask for an inspection and you can ask for inspection and ask for repairs after the inspection is done. That was the typical way. The offer is the weakest that way, but it's the typical way in a normal market. I give them their options. You can have an inspection and have an inspection, and it can be for informational purposes only. You know, and meaning it's just for your general knowledge. A lot of things that come along with buying a house and general home inspections are just the buyer's general knowledge. It comes along with home ownership. The seller's not going to repair all those issues, but it's just for your general knowledge. And even if you did ask for repairs, you want to let your buyer know. You want to set expectations and manage your buyer and let them know that, hey, if we're going to ask for repairs, they're just going to be for safety and health issues, pretty much. You know, if it's the flue going into the chimney, is the border around it is not sealed tightly, and possible carbon monoxide backing up into the house, then yes, you want the seller to take care of that. You know, things of that nature. But so they can have an inspection, ask for repairs. The inspection can be for informational purposes only, it's the second choice, or they can completely waive inspections. You know, so if you waive the inspection, yes, your offer is the strongest, but also you want to give them their options to have the inspections. And you know, of course, if they decide not to have inspection, make sure they initial that they waive the other inspections. So informational purposes only. On line 144 to 146 on our purchase agreement, section B, what you do a strike through in that area, and so you let them know it's portion B, because the first portion is they can ask for, in that portion of the contract, they can ask for inspection, ask for repairs. Second one, they can, well, first one, they'll set the contract reads, they'll set the offer, they'll set the house as is. The second one, they'll ask for repairs. And the third C is they'll sign a release and continue the search, or just sign a release. So what I do is, if they want informational purposes only, do a strike through lines 1B6, lines 144 to 146. And then I'll explain the other two options for them too. You know, that for like I said, actual repairs, or they can sign a release. So even if the house, this is my point, even if the house fails inspection, it's too much. And I set the expectation, there are going to be problems with every house. There are problems with the houses. Don't be alarmed. I tell the buyers, don't be alarmed by a 50-page inspection report. Don't be alarmed by that at all, because the inspector is going to go through the house with a fine-tooth comb. You're paying him $350 for 1.5 to 2.5 hours of work. He's going to find and nitpick the house. he's gonna justify him earning that money, and he's gonna do his job on that. So a lot of things in the report, he has to just put in the report because it's something he found. It's not necessarily a major issue, but he has to put in a report to cover himself as just put in doing his job as a general home inspector. So, and like I said, a lot of things come along with home ownership, but you can ask for safety and health issues if they want that. So informational purposes only, it's just for their general knowledge, okay? Now, even with informational purposes, you can still ask for some repairs. And you can do that. It's just up to the seller to agree to that, okay? If it's something serious, you can ask for it. The seller can agree, and you let your buyer know that that seller is not obligated to do these repairs, but we do have them under contract. The earnest money, you submitted your earnest money, you're moving forward. We can ask for repairs. It's up to them if they decide to do that. And another thing is, you can ask for repairs when you write your offer for a contingency. You can ask for repairs for a certain amount, okay? So for example, you could say, this isn't for informational purposes only, but just a general home inspection. And then you can put in the addendum that the buyer will not ask for repairs above $500. So if they ask for repairs, they're going to be minor repairs. Or you can do the complete reverse and write the offer and say, buyer will only ask for repairs above $2,000. So you're showing the seller that you're not going to nitpick the seller for small items. So either you can do it and say, we're just going to ask for a few things, minor issues, or we're going to assume the house, your buyer's going to assume the house and just ask for the major components, the major issues that come up. Okay, I don't know how we're looking on time.
We are doing good, Art. We are doing good.
Okay, so once again, earnest money, the most amount of money that the buyer can ask for. And you explain the situation of earnest money with your buyer. If they're comfortable with the earnest money being typically it's 1% of the purchase price, it can be more. The more the earnest money, it shows they're more sincere or earnest about buying a house. And I tell my buyers, the earnest money is usually deducted from the down payment. If you go through the transaction, if the earnest money, and it depends on how the lender works the transaction, but the earnest money is not lost. Usually it's deducted from the down payment and reduces the cash to close. So if the transaction works out where if the buyer doesn't want to move forward after the home inspection, then the buyer and seller can sign a release, and the earnest money should be returned back to the seller. But both parties have to sign the release. So earnest money is not lost. I actually had a situation where I represented the buyer, and the seller did not want to sign a release for the earnest money. It did go to court out of about 220 transactions. It did. I've been involved in. It did go to court, and the buyer was refunded the earnest money. But that's what the contract states, and you can show that, and you can show that to your client. Once again, it's best to show them better than just tell them. Show it to your client in the contract that the earnest money is to be returned to the buyer if the financing doesn't, if the buyer isn't approved for the loan, or they want to walk away after the result of the home inspection. So you want to show it to them and point those lines out in the contract. Honestly, with .loop, DocuSign, with these documents being signed online, we all know, and a lot of these buyers are not reading these contracts. All they know, they're just getting the house and they're clicking through the sign, and a lot of buyers are not reading contracts. They're just moving right along. So sometimes you have to slow it down and begin to explain it to them and explain that this is the process of buying a house. It's different than buying a car. It takes more than a few hours in the dealership and you're driving away. So there's a whole process with that. So same thing with seller concessions. Check with the loan officer. Does the buyer need help with closing costs? In a market like this, if you have help with closing costs, makes your offer less not as strong, and I do explain that to the buyers. You know, the more you can pay up front for yourself. Yes, it's more money out of pocket for yourself, but the more you can pay to get your offer, to have your offer accepted, the better you are. To make your offer stronger, the better you are. You know, and I do tell buyers, you know, when they're deciding on making an offer, you can tell them, you know, this is if you don't get this house, what's going to happen is when they're deciding on how much they offer, to offer more. If you don't get this house, what's going to happen is you're going to compare all future homes to this house. And subconsciously, you're going to go about looking for this house again somewhere else. And chances are, Mr. and Miss Seller, Mr. and Miss Buyer, you may not find this house again, especially in a market like this. So it's best to pay. You gotta do what they're comfortable with, because we want them to be able to keep their home. Best for them to pay the amount, if you can comfortably afford it, pay it and get the house. There was a transaction I had where a buyer was, interest rates were a little higher. So at the time, and the buyer was debated about, you know, the counter was $2,000 more. The seller counted at $2,000 more than what he offered. And I read some books about selling and how to present. A lot of this is presentation, how you present things to your buyer, because you negotiate for your buyer, and sometimes you have to negotiate for yourself to keep the deal together, okay? And negotiate negotiate for the buyer and negotiate with the buyer. So the counter was just $2,000 more, okay? So I call the buyer and say, Mr. Buyer, the difference in you buying a house, I told him for the cost of a pizza, you can have this house. He's a first time buyer. What does that make? What sense does that make to him? I got his attention. Tell me more. Well, they're $2,000 more for every $1,000 that your mortgage is going to increase. It's about $5 a month. So we're $2,000 off. You're about $10 different per month in buying this house. So would you like to set this offer? He said yes. So you can present it in different ways. You can take the $10 at the time rates were higher. Now it's about $3 to $4 a month. So if you do say if it was $10, you can divide $10 a month. You can divide the $10 by 30 days. So what about 33 for the difference of 33 cents a day, Mr. Buyer, you can have the house. So it's all how you present it, how you structure it, and make it where it's more, make it bite-sized opposed to this massive thing, you know. So you want to present it in certain ways where they can get it and process it a different way, where it's more favorable for you, for the seller, and you can keep the deal together. So of course he bought that house. We can move forward to the next slide here. There are different offer strategies you can use. I know there's a class that was taught on escalation clauses. I just had a transaction that went under contract over the weekend, or actually Monday, and there was an escalation clause. There were actually, we received 5 offers, and 2 of them had escalation clauses. And the escalation clause, there was escalation clause to one price. That was $127,000 for one price. And then the other escalation clause was $2,000 above the highest offer, up to $130,000. So the offer that won was $129,000. So escalation clauses, you can structure it depending on what your buyer is comfortable with, because keep in mind, you're working for your client, and I tell them that too. You know, I read a book, what's the book? By Tom Hopkins. It was Act Like a Lamb, Sell Like a Lion. So one thing what you want to do is, and I remember the portion in the book, he said, in sales, it's like a play, like a play. And you have the star on the person on the stage in the spotlight. Okay, they're on the stage, and all eyes are on them. It's all about that actor or actress. But as the salesperson, what you're doing is you're behind the scene, but you're actually controlling the light. So that actor or actress should try to stay in that light, because really you're really the one in control, but just behind the scenes. So what I do is, remember, act like a lamb, sell like a lion. I can play docile, I can play possum, I can let them feel like they're in control, I can let them feel I work for you, I'm working with you, I mean, you hired me. I give them all the empowering words to let them know that, hey, you're in charge. And you're in charge, but I'm gonna do what you want. I'm gonna, as long as it's compliant, I'm doing what you want, but I'm gonna gently guide them and provide my professional advice and my expertise about the market to the clients. So they can feel like they're in charge and they're doing what they want to do, but I'm going to direct them with the comps, with the data, what I know about the market, with the stories I have, with my experience. They're going to eventually see it the way I'm presenting the information to them, and it's going to present it to them that they're going to get the house. And because sometimes, we know real estate is emotional. You're dealing with a large sum of money, you're dealing with people with homes and buying a home and where they're going to raise their family, it can become very emotional. So you want to tone down their emotions, gain control of them, take the spotlight, gently guide them to where you want them to be. Emotions make them, like Mike mentioned to me, logic make them think, emotions make them act. So let's be more logical sometimes, and then let's begin to work this out where we can put this together. You have to know when to be emotional with them. You have to know when to be logical. You know, the emotional part could be the wife likes the kitchen, the wife likes the bathroom. The logical part with the husband or whoever the partner, whoever the numbers are there. You know, she likes the kitchen, like the bathroom, but the payment fits the budget. The payment fits the budget. Look at how much you're paying a month to continue to rent. And I work the numbers out with the client when I'm there at the house. I tell them I tell them what a payment would be. If they're in that house for a while, I don't rush them out of that house. Let them visualize where their furniture is. Let them visualize the paint on the color of paint and what they want to do and how they want to remodel. I know I have other showings. Other showings are scheduled. We'll get to those later. I'm not going to rush them out of the house because the longer they're staying in the house, the longer they're showing me they really like this house. I don't want to rush that moment. They're staying in the house 15, 20, 30 minutes. I'm working out I'm bringing out my phone. I'm working on a payment and what a payment will be for them in the background, and I'll let them know. If you put this amount down, the taxes are this amount, and the interest rate is here, you're looking at a payment about X amount of dollars. Interest rates are low, so what do they say? Wow, I didn't know it was going to be that little. I'm paying more for that for rent, or I'm paying that about that much for rent. And I tell them, because the rates are so low, the cost to buy a home is about the same or less than the cost to rent a 2-bedroom apartment in that same city. Rates are low. So when you present the facts to them, and I show them the app on the phone, I show the numbers, when you're presenting and showing, they're more likely to believe, opposed to just telling. It's kindergarten, show and tell. So I show it, I tell it, I interpret it, I explain it, I'll text them an article of the pace of the market and how the prices are going up. And I text an article to some clients showing that year over year, at one point this year over year, home sales, there are 32% more pending home sales in Cleveland, this year. So I'm showing them that, I'm telling them that, I'm interpreting all the information. So the escalation clause, you have the escalation clause, you can make that work for you. Now there's another strategy in making an offer, make an attempt to get in the offer accepted immediately. So what you could do is, when you present an offer, so say if you present an offer for $260,000, okay, you can present that offer and present it to the listing agent and say, this offer is valid, and put an expiration time on it. This offer, well, before you submit the offer, you ask the listing agent, when do you plan to submit the offer to your seller? Well, I'll submit the offer as soon as I receive it. Okay, or I'll submit the offer as soon as I receive it. So you put a time expiration on it about, if you're sending an offer at 2 o'clock, expiration time at 3 p.m. So the expiration time is on it, and you can say this offer is good for the maximum, your highest number, $260,000 to 3 p.m. So you're going to create urgency. You're going to put some pressure on the seller and the listing agent to get your response. Okay, it's only valid to 3 p.m. If you consider other offers, if you want to set this offer is good to 3 p.m. If you want to consider other offers, then we're going to reduce our offer to 250. Okay, so you say, well, they have other offers. They have other offers. That's true. So, but if you're showing a house, one of the first ones to show a house, you're getting an offer in, or there are no offers, you present that offer, and you're at 260, accept it immediately. Or if you want to wait around or shop our offer, we're not playing that game, it's 250. Sometimes you can get that seller to sign and agree under contract same day, 250. There was a time when I sold a house in Oakwood. We were the first one to show the house. House came to market. We were the first one to show the house, and got the listing agent on speakerphone, talked it over, and said, "Hey, we can submit an offer. We can submit an offer for this amount if we because and I love the ones when the listing agent is also the seller. I mean, you gotta call the listing agent at that point and try to say, let's work this out. Let's agree to a number. I'll write it up for this amount, and we can have a deal. Take it off the market." So we agreed to a number. We wrote it up, submitted it over. They accepted the offer, took it off the market. I was the only one to show the house. Because submit the offer, number they want at that time. Don't shop the offer. Don't wait. We're not waiting the weekend. Cancel the open house. Shut everything down. We got the offer. We have the winning offer. Get the house. Simple as that. So, so you can submit it like that. They accept it immediately. It's at one price. If you want to wait and wait to see what else comes in, we're reducing the price. Okay. And so another strategy you can use is you can pay the seller's offer less and pay the seller's closing costs. Like, for example, if the house is listed for $300,000, okay, is this for $300,000? You can offer, and you know, bids are going up. They're up to 320, 330, whatever. So say if you offer $315,000, you're above you're above list. But what you're going to do is you have to explain all this to your buyer. What you're going to do is you're going to tell your buyer what we're going to do is pay the seller's closing costs. So why would you do that? Well, you do that now at 315, opposed to the offer coming in at 330. Now your offer is at 315, and so now this house does not have to appraise for as much. So the house doesn't have to appraise for as much. You only have to appraise for 315, okay? And then you're going to pay the seller's closing costs. So this way, the seller is going to net probably just about as much or close to if they had an offer for 325, okay? But you work it out where, and you should explain this to the listing agent before you send the offer over. Explain this, and you work it out where the house doesn't have to appraise for as much, okay? When your buyer buys the house, there's a reassessment every 3 years for property taxes. The taxes won't be as high at some point when the county assesses the property values. The taxes won't be as high, and so it's a win-win situation. And I mean, like the teachers tell you, win-win transactions. So you don't offer as much, and you pay the seller's closing costs, or pay at least a portion of the seller's closing costs. That's another strategy that you can use there too. I mentioned escalation clause. Another one, you can have the expiration clause. And I didn't mention that, once again, to create urgency. Mr. Listing Agent, when are you going to present the offer to your seller? Well, they get off work at 6 o'clock. I mean, it's 2 in the afternoon. You're talking to the listing agent. They're off work at 6 o'clock. I'll present it to them at 6:30. Okay, you know, expiration time, date, offer expires. It's on line 14 of our purchase agreement that I enter this information, and I put it in caps. Offer expires the day, but Wednesday, May 26, 2021 at 8 p.m. It creates the urgency again, helps you prevent the offer from being shopped, help you from just waiting and waiting and waiting. And also, even when you have a response, like if they counter and you need to get initials, okay? Or they have a certain count, they have a counter. When you have your client to initial, or there's any type of counter, also respond to that with an expiration time, okay? Because sometimes until that seller, like for example, listing agent say, oh, we'll set an offer at a certain price, you can make the change in the contract. You make a change in the contract, your buyer initials, send that over to the listing agent, once again with another expiration time on it, date and time. Because you don't have a transaction until both parties, you don't have a deal until both buyer and seller sign. Must be executed. You don't want that listing agent to go around and start shopping your offer. You shouldn't tell how much the offer is, but well, we have a VA offer. VA, can you beat it? And start talking to their realtor friends or whoever they can to as a stall tactic to get more transactions. Then you have the appraisal gap coverage. I have a transaction like this now where the offer came in at a certain, not from my buyer, I have the seller. The offer came in at a certain amount, and the buyer said, we'll offer $160,000 and we'll pay $5,000 above the appraised value up to $160,000. Very strong offer, very strong offer. And so the seller, of course, accepted offer. So that's, you can have it where if the house, it doesn't appraise for the amount of the offer, if the buyer is willing to do it, then the buyer may make up the difference. Appraisal gap coverage on that. And you may have to talk to your lender about how they will structure their transaction. And you want to build it in. We talk about building rapport with the listing agent. You want to build rapport with the loan officers too. I have a transaction where I accepted an offer. Well, I didn't accept it. I encouraged my seller to accept an offer because I know the loan officer I know the loan officer the buyer is working with. He closes his deals, And so I told him I have a relationship with the loan officer. I work with him. He does a great job. He did a loan for me. When I bought my home, he did a loan for my mother when she bought her home. So they have a smooth, seamless process. And a lot of these clients, they'll say, we're going to take your advice. What do you suggest? And you give them your suggestions. So we can go to the next slide here about receiving offers. Receiving offers. So once again, you want to tell your client about the market on the listing presentation. You want to tell them the pace of the market. You want to tell them what's taking place, how the market, how they're flying off the market. They're in multiple offers. You want to prepare them and let them know about multiple offer situations. You want to tell them and make it clear the market you sell in is the market you buy in. Debbie on our call mentioned that before when we were talking. And so you want to tell them that a lot. You would be surprised, and it was a little surprising to me how people are trying to just want to see things just their way and just being one-sided, not really being open-minded. It's amazing how a seller think they can sell their house for so much money, way above list price, but when they go to buy a house, they want a fire sale. That doesn't work. You're buying. Mr. Seller, who's now a buyer, you sold your house for higher than list price. That buyer is paying their own closing costs. You want to buy a bigger home in a more desirable neighborhood. What do you think the situation is going to be in your situation? So you want to talk that out and have those conversations. Once again, set expectations. A lot of these buyers don't know. You have a lot of first-time home buyers. You have a lot of buyers who are just, a lot of sellers who are selling for the first time. They don't know the process. They don't know the transaction, how things work, especially in this market. So you want to begin to educate them and set those expectations, do lists of presentations. And once again, slides, charts, stories, articles, it all begins to be, it makes sense the more you begin to show and tell them. Okay, so when you're receiving offers, so before I even receive the offer, like if you're having a, and I know this is, you receive it on your listing agent, right? So you're the listing agent, and so what you do is you can have your seller to sign the listing agreement. They sign it. We always have to have them sign this agreement, but you sign them, but not date it just yet. Okay, so for example, you go to the house, you have the walkthrough first, you have the presentation, there are things they need to do to the house, things they need to improve and make better, and so forth. Well, we're not ready to list now, but we'll be ready, and I'll be ready in a month. They'll tell you as a realtor. Okay, not a problem. You take notes, and you're going through the house, and you're telling them about what they can improve and how things, and what needs work. Okay, and so I understand you're not ready to list the house now. We're talking about June in about a month. But what we can do is I have documents, and you can review the documents, and I can go over them with them, and I make it real subtle, real mild, and easing into the transaction, easily getting them to do not just what you want them to do, but what is best for them. What is best for them, a lot of times they don't know what's best for them. So you have to gently guide them and guide them into what the best thing for them to do. So we don't have to list the house now.
I'm on a Zoom. Okay, get off that.
All right, we don't have to list the house now. What we can do is have you to go to the listing documents. You can fill it out. We can complete it. Just don't date it. If you date it, I have to list the house within 2 days and put it in MLS. So don't date it. No pressure. Just sign. I can go over everything. Go over the net sheet. Go over everything on what you would net and what it would be, and you sign. Don't date it. I have deals in my pipeline right now of folders of listing agreements and documents that are signed but not dated, because sometime later I'm going to list that house. That seller is working on the house, they're doing things, it's not dated, and so then when it comes time for them to list the house, I'll revisit the house, walk through again, everything looks great, we'll put a date on it, and then we'll get an MLS. Now, what this does is, even before it's even dated, I can call my spirit influence. I can call my spirit influence if I have a listing coming up in Bedford Heights. I can call the people I know, the past clients, and ask for their spirit influence and the leads I have for that zip code, and circle prospect for telling them I have a listing coming up. I have a listing coming up. I don't tell them the address because I don't want them to try to make a deal with the seller, but is it coming up in Bedford Heights? And so I'm building momentum for that listing. I'm creating interest for that listing, okay? And so the house is listed, but not listed yet, is dated, right? The listing agreement is dated. So it's dated. I have 2 days to get that house in the MLS. When it's dated, I can start making plans to start showing that listing to my leads and to my prospects, okay? They're pre-approved. I walked it through there, and I'm showing them the house myself. Why am I doing this? It's obvious what I'm doing, because I have a listing, and I'm also working to have the buyer, okay? And I can have, you can work it out where you can have dual agents, okay? And so you have the 2 days before you put a sign in the yard, You put a sign, before you put a sign in the yard, and you're working to get the buyer yourself. And it's actually dated. 2 days come, the house goes in the MLS, then you put the sign in the yard if you didn't have, particularly if you didn't have, you couldn't get the buyer yourself. So a lot of times, what I'm saying is a lot of times agents will just list the house, throw a sign in the yard. Well, you put it on the MLS, you throw a sign in the yard just like that, you significantly reduce your commission. You may have a buyer. You can circle prospect. Another strategy or something that Polly mentioned to me, which is the 10-10-20. You have the listing, and then you door knock 10 doors to the right, 10 doors to the left, and 20 doors across the street. Or you can, or TruePeopleSearch.com, find the phone numbers and call that area and circle prospect. Now, I know we're talking about receiving offers because you can have an offer yourself and have both sides of the transaction yourself on your own listing. So that's something you can do. Some realtors don't think of that. They just, I have a listing, put it on MLS, put a sign in the yard, and just wait. Well, it could have had more. Now, if you have a sign in the yard and somebody wants to see the house based on the sign in the yard, and they call you, you can show the house. You show it, and then you don't have a relationship with this individual. They just saw the sign in the yard. What I'll do is I'll refer that client to another realtor. Give them that realtor, and I'll work a referral fee out with that realtor. With that realtor, I'll pay the realtor a percentage of the buyer's commission, and they'll have that commission, and you have the listing side and the other percentage of the buyer side of commission, because so that buyer can have their own representation. Okay. Now, if you have a relationship with the buyer, with both the buyer and seller, then you probably want to represent both and just have it be clear, explain dual agency to them, and send it to them an email saying, this is dual agency, explain it to them, are you comfortable with that? If they're comfortable with it, you can move forward. If not, they want their own representation, you refer them to someone else. If you have a team, you should refer them to someone on your team, refer them to someone in our market center. Okay, so we mentioned about we can go to the next slide here. So we mentioned about the 10-10-20 circle prospect. You're looking for a buyer, and you want to tell you're looking for a buyer. When you have your listing appointment, sellers like to hear you are going to look for a buyer. You are going to try to find a buyer yourself. So you have a listing presentation. Okay, you did a 10-10-20, and then also come in soon. Come in soon. Some of you may be familiar with it. Do a come in soon. I like to have my listings to go live on a Thursday or Friday. Thursday at the earliest of the week. So you prefer Friday, Saturday, Sunday. In this market, you want to be under contract. If you list it on a Friday, you want to be under contract by Tuesday. If you price right, this market is very forgiving for sellers. If it's priced even close to what it should be, the right price, it's going to go in multiple offers. Even when it seems like I'm overpricing houses. I mean, the market is just surprising us, and there are multiple offers and higher than list price. Both all offers are higher than list price. Even multiple offers when I thought it was overpriced. So, come in soon. How I do the come in soon? My come in soons are, I'll list it. I'll put it in the come in soon status on a Monday earlier in the week, or whatever day in the week, but say prefer it earlier in the week. Okay, and then you make sure you know the rules for coming soon. Then it goes live. Make it where it goes live active on that Friday or Saturday. Okay, showings are being scheduled during the coming soon process. That Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So for say Saturday and Sunday, we're letting the sellers know, don't be home. Go shopping. I mean, I have one seller said he'll put it was tenant occupied. He'll put his tenants up in a hotel for the day. Okay, so because we're coming soon, you're building momentum, and then you're going to build all these showings that's coming for the weekend. Okay, you're going to have all the showings, and one after another, cars lined up on the street, a seller's delight, a listing agent's delight. You're going to have showing after showing, and you want to be available to take the calls from the buyer's agents to begin to receive those offers and answer any questions they have. Okay, so Once again, coming soon Monday, make it live Friday. Make it live so at least you get the weekend. I'm not going live on Tuesday, Wednesday, but make it live for the weekend for you. Once you receive the offer, make sure you have all your documents. Make sure you have, you know, when the offer comes over, in some agents will they'll summarize the terms of the offer, and that's what you should do when you're making an offer yourself. You know, in an email, summarize all the terms, bullet point. And so when the offer comes in, make sure you look over the documents. Make sure the pre-approval letters there. Make sure you look over the price. Make sure you see if there's an escalation clause. Make sure you see if there's anything about closing costs or anything. Just look over at least the very details of the main points of the contract, of the offer and the terms. Make sure you know the date. Make sure the closing date works with your seller. And then if there are any questions, make sure you call the seller's office, the buyer's agent, to confirm all that, and make sure to get your question answered and make sure you confirm everything. You know, so you want to do that to make sure everything is correct. And of course, you do want to read through the contract. Most contracts are reading the same, but you want to make sure you're not missing anything. Okay, so we can hit the next slide here.
And we're actually at 10:10, so feel free to keep going. Don't feel rushed. But I'll also send this PowerPoint out to everyone who is on Zoom today, just so you can have it for reference in your email. And I'll put Art on the email too, so if you have any questions, you can ask them there.
All right. So when you receive the offer, confirm whether I'll try to speed up here. Confirm whether the buyer needs to sell their house. If it's a house sale contingency, you know, what are the terms? Are they a renter? It was an offer we accepted. My seller, I encourage my seller to accept because this buyer was a renter. The other buyer had to sell a house, and I didn't want to. You know, the domino effect can be a little stressful because if that buyer's having a problem with their buyer, then we can have problems with our transaction versus the other buyer was a renter, and at least they had a while before the lease expired. When you receive an offer, also reach out to the loan officer. Sometimes it'll say on the pre-approval, doesn't hurt to call and ask, have the credit been verified, the income verified, have the assets been verified, the reserve been verified, and do they need help with closing costs? You know, and sometimes the loan officer will tell you they're a strong borrower, the credit, everything checks out, and they're a strong borrower. They're a strong borrower. You want to tell your seller the difference between the different types of financing, conventional, FHA, VA, the different offers that come across. And what I do is it depends on what the seller wants. You can call for highest and best offers. Highest and best offers, if there are two offers or more, you can call for highest and best. Keep in mind by a certain deadline. But if offers come in that's strong enough, your seller does not have to wait. Seller doesn't have to wait. They can accept the offer at any moment. So what I do at times, I'll tell the seller that we have these offers coming in. I'll tell them the amount. I'll tell them the terms, and they can decide if they want to stop, and just accept an offer, or if they want to continue to wait for the deadline. And like what my one seller just said, you know, he's an investor. He said, "I'm not desperate. Let's wait." He waits, and stronger offer came in. Okay. Multiple. When you we go to the next slide. Multiple offers. When you present multiple offers, you want to have a spreadsheet or multiple offer form. I know Danielle had sent out a multiple offer form from Lincoln, but it's available where you can present all the information at a glance, and you can review the offers with your sellers. Okay, and you explain your professional advice, your opinion as to what offer is going to be a better offer for your seller. Okay. Once we said we talked about the financing contingencies, and also the dates. What date is best for your seller? Offer. Remember, it's the highest and best offer. You may need, when you're working with your sellers may need a buyer that's going to be flexible with their dates, with the closing dates. You know, it may not be the amount of money. It may be that they may need 60 days to find another house. And if your buyer, if your seller needs to find another house, let them know. We put in a purchase agreement that the seller, when you counter that the seller needs time to find another home, to find a home of their choice. You know, and you can make those closing dates, you know, not so firm, but just make it where they can begin to have some flexibility and find a home and find the right house for their choice. And then my last slide here, wrapping this up here, some advice. The market is hot, market is booming. The economy is hot for a lot of people. It's not for some, but the economy is hot for a lot of people. Real estate is the hottest sector of the economy. So in a boom like this, eliminate, as realtors, we should eliminate as much debt. Personal advice, you should eliminate as much debt as you can and save and build your reserves. You know, it's not always going to be this hot. There's going to be a market correction. Save your advice. Save some reserve. Save up. You have a family. A lot of our income is back. If you don't have another source of income, I mean, you can have profit sharing, but a lot of it can be built up on, is based on doing the transaction. There could come a time, chance of that there will be a time when doing transactions are not as easy. So you want to have the reserves for when things are not as lucrative. So, and then the bold law I put in here, one I really like, your business grows at the extent that you do. Your business grows at the extent that you do. If you want to do a successful business, it's the overflow of a successful life. So that's what I have. No one will over. Thanks for staying. Are there any questions and comments about anything here?
It does not look like we have any questions right at the moment, but again, I'm gonna send this PowerPoint out to everyone who is on, and I'll put Art on that email as well, so you can contact him or reach out if you do have any questions or questions that come up later throughout the day as you're processing all this information. Thank you guys all for joining us today. Thank you, Art.